Good morning. We join together in solidarity as a covenanted pilgrim people to explore together our life journey and what it might mean to live life as pilgrimage. We are called here by the mysterious pull of what is unanswerable and what is sacred, and the strong belief that we are meant to live a life that matters. I'm Dr. Libby Tisdell, and I'm a recently retired professor of 24 years at Penn State University, and I am also a chaplain, part-time chaplain at the Hershey Medical Center, and a longtime member of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. I did grow up Catholic. People always ask me if I'm still Catholic, and that's kind of like asking me if I have skin. Because whether or not I go to church there is not the operative question. It's part of the fundamental aspect of my being, and so even if I wanted it to go away, it wouldn't. So, I'm delighted and joyful to be here with you this morning and to celebrate and explore our attempts together to live life as pilgrimage, based partly on my own experiences of walking pilgrimage, including the Croagh Patrick pilgrimage in Ireland, which is most often done on a Reek Sunday, the last Sunday of July. I did that in 2009. And I walked the 500-mile pilgrimage of the Camino de Santiago in the summer of 2012, and last year did the 165-mile pilgrimage from Porto to Santiago. So when I was walking the Croagh Patrick pilgrimage, I probably was walking in the footsteps of my Irish ancestors, Irish Catholic ancestors, and then walking the Camino de Santiago de Compostela in Spain. I walked in the footsteps of the many pilgrims that have done that journey since roughly 900. Okay, our exploration together about what pilgrimage is and what it means is not only based on my experience, but it's also based on your experience of your own journey through life. So, under the great Compostela, Santiago de Compostela, Compostela actually means field of stars. Is that right? My Spanish? I don't know much Spanish. Let us worship and explore together. And please join us in the opening hymn, When Your Heart is in the Holy Place, in the Teal Hymnal, number 1008.
Rise and body your spirit as you're able to.
Praise
now in the service, it is time for our chalice lighting. So the chalice lighting this morning is based on the words of Sarah Lawal, which I adjusted a little bit. And so I'm going to read the words, and Cynthia's going to light the chalice. We take time to remember the ancestors' journey, lit by 1,000 stars. What the wilderness taught them, blessed be this land. Trust in the path. Celebrate with joy. What might the wilderness be teaching us now? Where can we pray under our 1,000 stars, recognizing that we are always on sacred ground? To feel our own life's blessings. To know our own journey is both lit from within and fueled by the support of community. None of us can do this alone. We light our chalice then in honor of the celebration of this journey, our ancestors, and with great joy.
Good morning. I'm Cynthia Davis, and I'm the worship associate for this morning, and I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I missed last Sunday. We welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster, whether this is your first time with us or you have been a long-time member or attender. We're glad you're here. We are glad and invite anyone, no matter what's your faith, whom you love, however you identify, you are welcome in this space. The responsive reading for today is 558. For everything, a season. I will read the standard print. If you will please read the italicized print. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time for war.
Once again, I'm Libby Tisdell, and this is a story of surrender. Often when I'm doing a worship associate reflection at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg, I say, I'm a Christian, Sufi, Unitarian Universalist, which really doesn't capture the plurality of my spirituality, but it's a start. So I already told you that my childhood spirituality was very much informed by Catholicism. I did go to Catholic schools up until the time I was in the 5th grade. And so, but over the years, of course, I questioned that and eventually ended up at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg via the Sufi tradition as well, particularly the international Sufi tradition. You'll hear a bit about that as we go on. So Lauren Artris tells this wonderful story in her book about labyrinths. She tells the story about a great-grandmother who has this wonderful great-granddaughter, and she gives the great-granddaughter a ring. And she tells her that if she ever loses her way, that she's going to attach an invisible thread to the ring, and that if she ever loses her way, she should follow the invisible thread, and it would lead her back to her great-grandmother, or the source of the sacred, is what she was getting at. So I've had lots of experiences over the course of my life, and I do feel like I'm following an invisible thread. And I've had many spiritual type of experiences that led up to me walking the Camino de Santiago. And by spiritual experience, Mary Lou Williams, she's a jazz pianist. Alan probably knows who she is. When she was giving concerts and when she felt like people weren't paying attention, she'd stop and she'd pound on the podium and she'd say, "Listen, this will heal you." So spiritual experiences are the kind of experiences that stop you in your tracks and say, "Listen, this will heal you." So I'm going to do this sermon basically in two parts. First part will be up here. I'm going to talk about how I ended up walking the Camino de Santiago the first time in 2012. And the second part, I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to talk about my experience of trying to live life as pilgrimage. So how many of you know what the Camino de Santiago is? So most of you, not all of you, most of you know that it is. Well, Santiago is St. James. The Camino de Santiago, St. James was the apostle, supposedly the apostle of Jesus, who went to the Iberian Peninsula and was beheaded there, and tortured and beheaded, and his remains washed up with scallop shells on them. That's why I'm wearing a scallop shell. So that's how the Camino de Santiago came to be known, was the scallop shell. It was originally a Catholic Christian pilgrimage, but now many people walk the Camino, most for some sort of spiritual reasons, but they're not necessarily Christian per se. But some people walk it just for adventure, the adventure of doing so. So the Camino is situated under the Milky Way, and those who walk it sometimes refer to following the Milky Way, or their Compostela, of walking under a field of stars. So saints and prophets of old have walked this road, and so have many modern pilgrims, and it became extremely popular after the movie The Way came out, and with Martin Sheen, and so it's, from what I understand, it's quite crowded these days if you walk in the summertime. So why I walked it? Well, in November of 2011, I got a divorce. Many of you have been through that experience. As divorces go, it wasn't a really bad divorce. It was something we both wanted. Nevertheless, it was still disorienting, and I felt like I was not recovering from the disorientation more quickly. So I was talking to a friend of mine in Seattle, where I used to live. I had gone back for a visit, and I was talking about the Camino, just in passing, and I had also been trying to do a little bit of dating on Match.com. Many of you have probably done that. It wasn't my best act. Anyway, she said to me, "Your match is not Match.com. Your match is the Camino de Santiago. I think you should do it this summer." I only had 6 weeks, but I did have a free ticket. So I did book the ticket with only if I could get the money back if I didn't go. So I did book the ticket, and I set out to getting ready. Now, when you walk a pilgrimage, you have to get physically ready, but you also have to get spiritually ready. And so I was walking around the city of Harrisburg and Wildwood, and some trails in the area, part of the Appalachian Trail in the area, until I could get up to 10 miles with a full pack, walking over mountains. So I thought, well, okay, if I do this, I'll be ready, and I won't get those dreaded blisters. But spiritually, I also had to get ready spiritually. And I was informed by two aspects. A wonderful book, talking book by Paulo Freire and Miles Horton, called We Make the Road by Walking. And they're really writing about what it means to be an activist. They're both educators, and both deceased now. But they talk about We Make the Road by Walking. That title is really based on a Spanish poem by Antonio Machado. And their point is, we don't really know how to be an activist. We make our way by doing it. We make our way by walking. But I was literally going to make the way of the rest of my life by walking, by doing this pilgrimage. The second phrase, I mentioned my Catholic background, my Christian roots. I was informed in part by the Beatitudes, and one in particular. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Now, Neil Douglas Klotz, Sufi mystic, says that, who speaks Aramaic, that what that phrase actually means is, blessed are they who plant peace each season. They shall be called the children of God. And I somehow translated that to, blessed are they who plant peace in every step. So I left Harrisburg on July 4th, very significant, Independence Day, and I knew I had to do this journey alone. And I was nervous about that as a woman, traveling alone, but I knew I had to do the journey alone. I left on the 4th of July because it was Independence Day, and it was significant. So, but I was very supported by friends, so it's sort of Interdependence Day, right? Friends were supporting me along the way. I started walking on July 6th. I started walking from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France and walked all the way to Santiago. I walked, which is 500 miles. I walked into Santiago on August 10th, and I was about 3 days faster than average. I was 56 at the time, and I thought, I better do this now while I can still walk. So that was part of the reason that I did it. And let's see, where am I going from here? Okay. So of the things that I learned, Compostela, as I said, is a field of stars, Compostela. So I'm walking on the earth, but I'm trying to plant peace in every step, right? And there's a saying, for those of you, I know there's at least one person here that's done the Camino. There's a saying that you meet people along the way, and what do they say? Buen camino. May you have a good journey, a good walk. So at different points during the sermon, a little call and response, I'm going to say buen camino, and you're going to say it back to me, okay? So buen camino. Good. Okay. So there's a book about pilgrimage, and because I'm old now, I can't remember the author's name, but I'll think of it tonight. So that happens too. But he writes about pilgrimage, and he talks about the phases of pilgrimage. I already talked about getting ready for the pilgrimage, but there's specific things that I want to talk about the journey itself, actually being on the journey. The first is the power of beauty. I was just absolutely captivated by the beauty of the Camino. I climbed mountains, I crossed the Pyrenees, I walked through vineyards. And as I was walking into Pamplona, which is the city where the bulls, where the running of the bulls is, as I was walking, I could see in the distance, there was all this yellow, and I couldn't figure out what it was. But as I got closer, I realized it was sunflowers. They were sunflowers. And the most wonderful thing about sunflowers is at certain points in their lives, they're heliotropes, so they turn their faces toward the sun. So this became a great metaphor for me. What would it mean if I always tried to turn toward the light? But when there's light, there's shadow, right? So you always have to deal with the shadows. We don't just live in the light. And so I celebrated beauty and the power of nature to heal. As people would say to me, buen camino. And you say back, buen camino. Okay, so I got my body ready for this journey. I thought I was not going to get blisters. People were suffering, and they had them. And I didn't have them because, I read all the books. I did what I was supposed to do to prepare until day 12. Because your feet swell. They tell you to get a full shoe size bigger than what you wear because your feet swell. And that's when I got blisters. Well, these suckers were so painful. I thought, how am I going to walk the remaining 350 miles or whatever it is with these blisters? It was one level below excruciating. And so I thought, well, they're only blisters. I mean, I don't have any broken bones, or anything like that. I should be able to manage this. And in times of crisis, your most primitive spirituality comes back. Go back to my Catholic roots, right? So I kept thinking as I was walking of the story of the healing of the paralytic in John's Gospel, where Jesus says to the paralytic, pick up your mat and walk. So here I had my blisters. So I said, okay, I'm going to pick up my mat and walk. So that became a mantra, as well as plant peace in every step. Pick up your mat and walk. Pick up your mat and walk. So I would do that, and after about 10 or 15 minutes, the pain wouldn't completely go away, but it became very manageable. And so, I thought that was kind of miraculous in a certain way. And then I'd have to go to the bathroom. I'd have to stop and go to the bathroom. And would start all over again. How am I going to keep going? Pick up your mat and walk. So that became one of my my sayings. And this was part of surrender, because at that point in my life, I didn't really have a lot of experience of pain physically. I was pretty lucky in that regard. So that became a surrender, and I would really celebrate when people would say, buen camino. Thank you. So, along the way, I met this group of folks who were from Ireland, and we got to be known as those people that sing. So, we'd start the day, and we'd sing a little, and we'd sing in harmony, and we did, we are marching in the light of God. I didn't know Sia Hamba then, but I learned that was also Sia Hamba. So we would do that, and we'd get ourselves going, and then we'd all kind of go our separate ways, because people walk at a different pace. But we'd stop at these little hole-in-the-wall little churches along the way, and we'd usually meet up, and we'd sing a tune or two, and usually something from a Taizé chant, Taizé, which is from France, and they're pretty simple chants. And a lot of times people in the area were familiar with Taizé. And so many times people at these places would join us in our chants. So we got to be known as those people that sing. So we arrived in Santiago on August 6th, or August 10th, And one of the tunes that we had been singing along the way was Jubilate Deo. Jubilate Deo, jubilate Deo, hallelujah. So we would sing that a little bit, you know. So we came into Santiago singing Jubilate Deo. And then eventually everybody in the square was singing Jubilate Deo because people knew that in the area. It was magical. And then I ended up going to the mass where they throw the fumo bowl, you know, if you've seen the movie, the bowl of incense where they bless the pilgrims. And as they did that, they sang Jubilate Deo again. These are synchronicities. Listen, this will heal you. Okay, so I also thought about my feet because I had had such trouble with my feet. But they were, you know, the last few days of the Camino, thankfully, the blisters were mostly healed. But I thought of the scripture passage, how beautiful upon the mountain are the feet of those who bring good news. Remember to always bless your feet. Take care of your feet. Buen camino. So then I came home. And so this is when I thought I need to learn I felt like a different person. You know, I felt a lot stronger. I was amazed what I could put myself through. And so when I got home, I do call this a pretty significant transformative experience for me. How am I different? In some ways, I'm not different. One of the things that I learned on the Camino is you bring your whole self with you. It is not an escape from life. And so I've had a lifelong problem with anxiety, and so I brought my anxiety with me. And there's a saying attributed to St. Augustine. It's in Latin, solvito, I forget how you say it in Latin, but anyway, the translation is, there is nothing that can't be solved through walking. Nothing that can't be. So it's like I found that I could manage my anxiety through walking. But I also have an obsessive need to be liked. I also met that, too. So there was a woman on the journey that I knew she didn't like me. And I'm like, why doesn't she like me? I obsessed about that a little bit along the way. Why doesn't she like me? I'm perfectly likable. But she didn't like me, so I was really bothered by that. So it's like, oh, here we go again. So you bring your whole self with you. It is not an escape from life. So what would it mean then to live life as pilgrimage? And so now I'm going to move down below, and I want to teach you a song that I actually wrote because it popped out when I was just sitting around playing the guitar, maybe about a week after I got back from the Camino. So this is just practice. This isn't the anthem. I'm just going to teach you how it goes, and I'm going to sing it once. But I do have a great devotion. The Catholic part of me still has a great devotion to St. Francis of Assisi, and so I learned a prayer of St. Francis. All good Catholic people learn the prayer of St. Francis when they're growing up. So this is kind of based on that. It goes like this, and it is in your order of service. But I'm going to sing the first verse once, and then you're just going to sing it as practice. This is not the anthem. We're just going to learn how it goes before we go into part 2 here. It goes like this. Make me a channel of your peace. Make me a channel of your peace. Planting peace in every single step Now you join me. Just sing that back to me. Make me a channel of your peace. Make me a channel of your peace. Planting peace in every single step. Breathing peace in every breath. Perfect. Thank you. That wasn't the anthem. That's just practice. You did great. Okay. So now for part 2. What does it mean for living life as pilgrimage? Remember, for me, I'm following an invisible thread. So I'm always looking for those moments where something gets my attention that says, listen, this will heal you. It's not planned because I don't know what's going to happen. So we make the road by walking, right? So that continues for me. So it's about planting peace in every step, or at least trying to do that. So after I came back, this was sort of a synchronicity. I didn't go looking for this. But I had done mindfulness meditation before, you know, and I'm an academic. Once an academic, always an academic, right? So mindfulness, I didn't need to focus on my mind anymore. You know, I focused on my mind all the time. So what I needed to focus on more was my heart and opening my heart. And so I learned the practice of heart rhythm meditation. And it's very similar to mindfulness in some ways. But rather than focusing on the mind and emptying the mind, heart rhythm meditation focuses on the literal and the figurative heart. Another difference is that in mindfulness, you generally follow your normal breath. In heart rhythm meditation, you follow your full breath, and you sync your breath to the beat of your heart. Now, I'm not going to go through the details of the practice because there isn't time for that, but I can talk to you about that later. But when I meditate, and I try to do it every day, I don't do it every day. It's just a goal to do it every day. And I also lead a group over Zoom and have been doing that since the beginning of COVID. But meditation is about 4 things. It's about intention, cultivating an intention. So for every meditation practice, what is my intention for today's practice? Then the second part is attention, focusing my attention, mostly on my heartbeat and my breath. The third part is attitude. And when I'm leading meditation, related to whatever our group intention is on that particular day, I will say, think of 5 things that you're grateful for related to your intention. And the last part is attunement. And attunement is about just attuning to whatever is. Just attuning to it. So if my dogs are barking during this, it's irritating, but I just try to attune to it and let it go. Or if Donald Trump is irritating, or Elon Musk, not to get political, I just try to attune to it and let it go, with an emphasis on letting it go. So those 4 things, and I call this heart rhythm meditation practice. It's a practice. It's not a perfect, it is a practice. And the reason I practice is because when I'm in situations that are really stressful, I know how to drop into this meditation practice. People don't know what I'm doing, but I can't do that unless I practice. So living life as pilgrimage is really about those four things. Cultivating intention, focusing your attention, trying to cultivate an attitude of gratitude, and attuning to whatever is in your environment so you don't miss those moments that say, listen, this will heal you. I also coincidentally started when I came back about a couple of months after heart rhythm meditation. Call me crazy, but I love doing this. I started practicing hot yoga, 105 degrees, hour and a half. I still do it. It's too much for most people, but hey, whatever flips your switch. Something else that happened over the years that I was practicing heart rhythm meditation, I didn't try the Match.com thing again, but I did fall in love again with someone I call my woodman, Jim Doyle. He's runs Nature's Way Nursery and Bonsai Studio in Harrisburg. And one of the things that he taught me, and not because he was trying to teach me anything, but more about the incredible healing power of nature. So sometimes when we walk, we'll go for a walk together, but I always hear his little clippers, he's always pruning things, in the woods, And I know he's behind me somewhere because I hear the sound of his pruners. But sometimes I really try to focus on how the trees are giving me a blessing as I walk under their canopy. They're giving me their oxygen. I'm giving them my carbon dioxide. It's an exchange. That's what I mean by focusing attention. I don't think of this all the time, but sometimes I do. And because I try to practice meditation regularly, I'm a little bit more tuned into it. And Marilyn Klein talks about the importance of beholding things in nature, immersing yourself in them, and then reflecting on them. And it's something that I did teach my students at, in my doctoral program at Harrisburg. The other thing that happened for me, and this was another synchronistic event, I was a campus minister for that feminist organization called the Catholic Church from 1979 to 1989 before I went back to do my doctoral work. But I always thought about becoming a hospital chaplain, maybe, because what was I going to do when I retire? And so, coincidentally, somebody stopped by my office one day at Penn State Harrisburg, and he just happened to be the head of clinical pastoral education at the Hershey Medical Center. So he was really looking for somebody else, but we got into this conversation, and he told me what I needed to do to become a chaplain. Again, listen, this will heal you. So I've been a part-time chaplain at the Hershey Medical Center since 2020. And then in 2023, in August, I was in Alaska with my husband visiting his son. I wasn't feeling well. I had walked the journey with many people to the edge of the Veil, crossed the Veil. I didn't cross the Veil myself. They did, but I didn't. And there was a friend of mine who I did this that had ovarian cancer. And it led her to the Veil. She crossed over. And when I was in Alaska, I was having this little pain, I wasn't really thinking that much of it. And I thought, I'm just having sympathy pains with Michelle. But my head didn't feel right. Anyway, to make a long story short, I had what I call my stroke of luck. I didn't have it until I got home. And I had gone to a meeting on campus and I was acting pretty nuts. And so a friend of mine called Jim when I got home and said, I don't think she's right. So anyway, he took me to the hospital. Turns out I had a small stroke, but the way I was acting, pretty crazy, didn't match with where the stroke was in my brain, small stroke. And so this resident, neurology resident, second year, August, so just barely into his second year, he kept on asking me, are you having any pain anywhere? Nope, I'm not having any pain. He goes, are you sure you're not having any discomfort anywhere? No. And then he said, well, like, do you have any pain in your abdomen? And I said, well, I feel this little twinge over here on my left side, but it's nothing. I would never even take an aspirin for it. Well, he suspected that I had ovarian cancer because my blood levels were screwy. So sure enough, he said, well, do you mind if we do a scan? What do I got to lose? I was more worried about being crazy. Well, I did have ovarian cancer. But I was very lucky because it was only stage 2. This is why I call it my stroke of luck. And it came, again, in a time of crisis. You go back to your most basic spirituality. It wasn't immediately at that point, but I thought of the Annunciation, the story of the Annunciation. For those of you that don't know the story, it's when the angel Gabriel supposedly appears to Mary and tells her that she's pregnant. Well, nobody was telling me I was pregnant. But it reminded me in particular of this beautiful painting by Henry Tanner, who was an African-American artist who he lived, I think he died in 1947. But the painting is hanging in the Philadelphia Museum. It's called Annunciation. And what I love about the painting, it has a Mideastern young girl, and rather than having angels, and all that stuff, she's looking at a shaft of light. This beautiful shaft of light, and it made me that Annunciation. You have ovarian cancer. My response was, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? So I thought of that, turning toward the light, just like in Henry Tanner's painting. If you get a chance, if you've never seen it, it's better in person, but you can also look it up online. Turning toward the light. So, all right, so to wrap up, so revisiting Santiago de Compostela. So for everything, we read this reading, there is a season, right? A time for every purpose under heaven. So, I had my little bout with ovarian cancer. I did chemotherapy. I lost my hair, The last time I was bald was an imbolc, was the last time I was completely bald, which is also the feast of the goddess Bridget, Saint Bridget. So Bridget guided my journey, both Bridgets, both the saint and the goddess, guided my journey into my own healing, along with my friends. I had an incredible group of friends who took great care of me. They helped Jim, my partner, my husband Jim. They were all very organized, and I was still a little crazy for a while until probably until about mid-October. From August to mid-October, I was kind of a little out there, but at least I knew it. So then my brother had this scathingly brilliant idea that he wanted to walk the Camino de Santiago. My brother had a bad heart attack a few years ago, and I said, I don't think you should do the Camino, Francis. It's too hard, and it's too long. Maybe the Portuguese Camino. So then he said, well, you want to go with me? Well, here I was finishing up my chemotherapy, and then I finished it about a year ago, but now I have to do maintenance for 2 years, so I'm a year into maintenance. So I said, okay, it's supposed to be a lot easier. Oh my goodness, it was so hard. It was way harder than the Camino Frances for me, mostly because I was 12 years older and I had just gone through chemotherapy. But once again, it wasn't transformational in the same way, but it was like revisiting, re-seeing the beautiful sunflowers. Remember, turn toward the light, follow the invisible thread. I found out my brother and his wife were getting a divorce. I was devastated. They've been like the foundation for my family. It's like, you can't get a divorce. You know, I know it's your life, but, you know, having to deal with these disappointments. So, intention, attention, attitude, and attunement. Go back to your meditation practice. In my sadness about that, go back to your meditation practice. Plant peace in every step. That is what living life as pilgrimage means for me. And I can't wait to hear what living life as pilgrimage means for you, but we'll have to do that at coffee hour. But for now, let's move into the anthem and join me in singing the whole prayer of St. Francis. And if you feel a harmony after the first verse, feel free to do it. And the choir has practiced it, so they're really good. Okay, so please join me in singing this. I'll give you cues for what the, oh, and make sure that you always have a buen camino. Cool, all right, so here we go. Follow the invisible thread, plant peace in every step, and let's sing the prayer of St. Francis. Make me a channel of your peace. Make me a channel of your peace. Planting peace in every single step. Breathing peace in every breath. Make me a channel of your love. Make me a channel of your love. Make me a channel of your love. Planting love in every single step. Breathing love in every breath. Hope, make me a channel of your hope. Make me a channel of your hope. Make me a channel of your hope. Planting hope in every single step. Breathing hope in every breath. Make me a channel of your joy with gusto. Make me a channel of your joy. Make me a channel of your joy. pilgrimage.
When I began to think about pilgrimage, the only image that I had in my mind was the Camino de Santiago, and perhaps the pilgrimage that folks do at Lourdes. And so those were my images of what a pilgrimage was, and I had never been on one. I have a sister-in-law who has walked the entire Camino, but I've never really chatted with her about what was driving her, what was motivating her. So I began to look up different synonyms for pilgrimage and came across a verb called peregrinate. Now that was new. It probably showed up on an SAT exam many years ago. But I thought, peregrinate, well, I've learned something. And then as I began to read what other people thought about as a pilgrimage, I began to see it more as a journey with some purpose, and that any one of us could do it. And then as I reflected more, I realized that I really had done it. And it just simply had taken 49 years for me to accomplish that, but it was, in a way, a goal. Then I think, and that was 30 years ago, then I think, what am I doing now? I'm a pretty firm non-believer, and so a lot of the terms that are used in meditation, etc., just don't ring for me. And for a short while, before I returned to UCL, I was at Quaker meeting, and I have to say, an hour of silence was a challenge to clear my head of anything, and I think I was resistant to it. But of late, I think I'm becoming more open to it. At least that's what my spouse tells me. And she and I were talking about it the other night, and she said, you know, you have been taking down various barriers that you have. We all, at least I did. I always had a lot of good protection around me so that I couldn't get close to my feelings. And she said, you know, you're kind of letting those fall away. And I said, but I don't know where I'm going. And she said, that doesn't matter. Just take some steps. And it will become clearer at a later point. Quakers call this, I just lost what I was going to say. Way will open. And so that's where I am. I must be on another pilgrimage, partially deliberate, but a lot of it kind of unconscious, but I can feel it. So I'll see where that leads. Now, we will have the offering for your gifts freely given for the work of the church. The plates may now be passed. While that's being done, I'm sorry, Alan. Share the plate recipient. Go ahead, I can talk while that's happening. This month is Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake.
now it's a point in our service where we offer stones of joy and sorrows. So I think you know the routine of this, so if you could come up at the middle aisle and go over to where Cynthia is standing and return on the side aisles. And so we take a stone of sorrow, you know, maybe a darker colored stone, and then perhaps a brightly colored stone for a joy. So I invite you to go ahead and begin. Place in the water one more stone for our sorrows that are silent in our own hearts, and a brightly colored stone for all of our joys. And then we take a brief moment of silence to ponder the way the journey of life is filled with sorrows and joys and everything in between. How can we both hold them and live them, embracing all of them as part of living life as pilgrimage?
This time, we're in the midst excuse me, of our annual pledge campaign, and I invite David Dobbins to come up and give his testimonial.
Hello, I'm David Dobbins, and my wife Linda is here. We came to Lancaster in 1977 and started here. I guess we've become a historical perspective in this church, but anyway. So what happened, that when we came to Lancaster, we came from the Boston area, Wellesley. I taught at Wellesley College for some years before going to Millersville University, and we knew we were coming to a conservative community here in Lancaster. But from Boston, it's quite a change from here to Lancaster. And so our children, our daughter was in the first grade and our son was in kindergarten. And so they went to school at Hambright Elementary. She was in first grade and had a Mennonite teacher. And so we got called in for a teacher conference. And we said, because she was disturbing. And so we met with the Mennonite teacher, and she says, well, what's the problem? And I said, well, your daughter hums while she works. Okay, we're called parent-teacher conference for that. I thought, well, that's good. So they also, our children, were being asked by other kids, well, what church do you go to? Well, they didn't go to any church because we hadn't had any at this time. You know, we were there. So someone suggested the Unitarian church. So we did that. Actually, the Harkle Roads suggested that to us. And so we started coming, and they went to the RE, and my daughter was in the class, in the RE class, and they talked about the origin of cells and life and the meaning of life and that. And I thought, wow, she's going to church to get education and going to school to get religion. Anyway, so I knew we were in the right place for here so that was good. And so one of the things that over the years I've heard people say, and I used to say it too, is that, oh, I go to the Unitarian Universalist church. Okay, how many other people in other religions do you hear say, oh, I go to the Presbyterian church, or I go to the Methodist church? And that. I've become to say, I am a Unitarian Universalist, and I don't go just to the church. You know, I have a philosophy and a theology with a background from that, which is part of the testimony. And supporting that is a religious and a liberal religion conflict for that. It's really important, I think, to support religious education, and particularly at these times in our country. And we used to have a campaign slogan that I really liked much. It says, give till it feels good. And you may have heard that before, but it's really very good for things. And so I would suggest that we do that. You know, Unitarians have a lot of different causes. I mean, there's all these kinds of things that we donate and belong to as clubs, whether it's the Sierra Club, climate change societies, and so forth. We give a lot of money to a lot of different organizations, but where is the Unitarian Universalist pledge in your list? I suggest that you move it up to close to the top and have all the things that you give to, because it is so important these days particularly to give for liberal education, and in this community particularly, we can make an impact. And we can do it if you donate, if you pledge, and give money to support our efforts here as a Unitarian Universalist in Lancaster. We're the only one here for that. So as far as that goes, I would like to encourage you to please look at that and mention one other way in which you can help support liberal education besides pledging. And that is, I'm a member of the Development Investments and Trust Committee. And one of the charges of that is investment of our monies in Merrill Lynch and in other places. But the Legacy Society is what we have here that says anyone who has left or mentions and leaves money or assets in their wills or in their estate planning to the Unitarian Church, that is so helpful too. So that's the second way you can give. The pledging is important to maintain things, but think about putting in your will, and don't just say, oh, I'll get to it sometime. Make sure you do it now. Leave something for the Unitarian Church. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, David. Join me now in reading the affirmation of faith, which is found in the front of your gray hymnal. We will say it twice, first in English and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ofrenda. Este es nuestro gran pacto, al convivir unidos en paz, al buscar la verdad con amor, y ayudarnos unos a los otros. First, I'd like to invite you all to join us for coffee downstairs in Emerson Hall, which is directly below this sanctuary. And there are elevators that will take you straight there, as well as stairs. There are several announcements in the bulletin that I'm going to let you read. But there is one that's not in the bulletin that I am going to tell you about. Congratulations are in order to our choir director, Eli, and our choir, our Voices Among Us Women's Quartet, and the Stock in the Yards Barbershop Ensemble, all from the church, all of whom were privileged to perform at yesterday's Festival of Voices concert. It was an honor to be chosen to sing at this prestigious event, and every performance was outstanding. So congratulations to all of our musicians. And now we'll sing our closing song, Blue Boat Home. It's number 1064 in your teal hymnal.
May rise and body your spirits as you are able. Folks, you know this one. If you don't, teach our new friends. Though below me I feel no ocean, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry and heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never
We are indeed kindred pilgrim souls making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat that will take us home. And so I'd like to close now by helping you to remember to live a life with intention, attention, attitude, and attunement. And the act of meditation is as much an action, if it's done with intention, as is going to a hands-off march, as I did yesterday. One informs the other. So I want to end with the Simon Says exercise. It goes like this. There's motions to it. I wish you peace. I wish you friendship. I wish you love. I see your beauty. I hear your needs. Your wisdom comes from a higher source. I salute that source within you. Let us work together. And we'll do it again silently. Buen Camino. Thank you very much. And I will be downstairs for coffee and conversation, and I'd love to hear your stories of your attempts to live life as pilgrimage.